today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
This is my first video update from Belgrade, Serbia. On this Monday morning, let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Senator Marco Rubio and the fact that Rubio is saying the quiet parts out loud, which is that the U.S. does indeed use sanctions as a weapon against other countries that refuse to fall in line with Washington dictates. Rubio is very worried about de-dollarization. He's worried about trade happening outside of the dollar, and the fact that de-dollarization and trade outside of the U.S. dollar will mean that the United States has lost one of their most feared weapons when they engage in foreign policy. I was going to say when they engage in diplomacy, but that is not what the U.S. has been doing lately. But when they do engage in foreign policy, their preferred weapon of choice is sanctions, and they are losing this weapon. I would say they have lost this weapon. Another effect of the catastrophic decision to wage an economic war against Russia. And it's an admission from Rubio that they have lost. The United States has lost this economic war, and they have lost the sanctions war. And now the entire world outside of the collective West, the rest of the world, does not have to fear sanctions as much, and they are working together. The global South, the entire world outside of the collective West, is working together to create a sanctions-proof, multipolar world order, and this has upset and worried Rubio. So that was the admission, the statement from Senator Rubio. He gave de-dollarization a time window of around 5 years. I would have agreed with that 6 months ago, but after seeing everything that has happened over the last 2-3 weeks, I would say that de-dollarization is now something that is happening so quickly that a 5-year window is actually being very, very optimistic and generous if you're a neocon or a DC deep state insider. I would say that now the window is something like maybe 2 years, give or take, for de-dollarization to really take hold around the world. Anyway, that was Marco Rubio. Let's now talk about the big news story from yesterday, which was the assassination of Russian journalist and blogger Maxim Fomin, or as he goes by his pen name, Vladlen Tatarsky. And this blogger, journalist from Donbass, I believe he was from Donetsk. He was assassinated in a St. Petersburg cafe during an event at the St. Petersburg cafe. A girl brought in a statue, a bust, which was packed with explosives, and she placed it next to Tatarsky. She actually gave it to him as a gift, and it blew up, killing Tatarsky and injuring 30 people at this cafe in St. Petersburg. 8 people right now are in critical condition. They're being treated at hospitals in St. Petersburg and in critical condition. A second journalist has now been assassinated on Russian territory, Daria Dugina being the first. She was killed when her car exploded in Moscow, and now we have Tatarsky, who has been assassinated. And both journalists were in Donbass and in Donetsk covering the war in the east of the conflict. So the reports are that the girl that brought this statue to Tatarsky, her name is Daria Trepova, and she has now been captured. She has been detained by Russian authorities. There's actually a video that has been released by the Russian authorities where she answers some questions from the Russian authorities, and she says that she was indeed carrying the bust into the restaurant, and when they asked her, "Do you know what this statue contained?" her reply was something like, "Can I answer that later?" And she admitted that she was being detained for the murder, for the assassination of this journalist. So the narrative, from what I've received so far, was that this girl Trepova was in Georgia for 6 months, and it's from her time in Georgia where she was allegedly approached by Ukraine officials and Ukraine media, and that's when she was brought into the fold of the Ukraine authorities and became part of this team of Ukraine officials and journalists who would go to Russia and work against the Russian narrative and the Russian officials. And that's when she traveled to Russia from Georgia. From what I understand, she traveled from Georgia to Russia and then located in St. Petersburg, in an apartment in St. Petersburg. And basically what she was tasked with doing was delivering packages to different locations. It seems that she was kind of like what they would call in the mafia, or in drug gangs. She was like a bag man, kind of like that. She would deliver packages and envelopes from here to there. She would get the order, and she would deliver whatever package, and she would pick up whatever packages, and that's what she was tasked to do. And the big question is whether she did know that this bust was packed with explosives. I can't imagine she did not know, but I guess we'll find out. I imagine that her excuse will be that she didn't know, but we'll see. We'll see as this plays out what exactly happened and how much was she involved in the plot to murder the Russian journalist Tatarsky. There are already claims being made by Russian officials that this was coordinated and orchestrated from high above, from the Ukraine SBU, and the Elensky government was thus involved in the assassination of this journalist. There are also claims that Tatarsky was a part of the Russian government to a certain extent. He was involved, or he was employed by the State Duma or government officials in Donetsk, and that kind of makes him a Russian government official, which would mean that this was an assassination not only of a journalist, but of a Russian government official. This is the information that I've got so far. I can't confirm a lot of this 100%. For example, the reports are that Trepova was in Georgia. I'm not 100% of that. The reports are that she was, I guess you could say, indoctrinated or brought into this circle of saboteurs and plotters and Ukraine intel officials and journalists while she was in Georgia, and then she was given her tasks to carry out while she traveled to Russia. There are reports that her husband is currently located in Georgia. There was an RT report saying that her husband was outside of Russia, avoiding the military, his military duties. But there are also reports that her husband was part of Alexei Navalny's political party as well. And both Trepova and her husband took part in a lot of anti-war protests in St. Petersburg as well. So that's the information that I have. Once again, I just want to say that I'm not 100% sure on a lot of this stuff. What I am positive of is that she has been detained. She has been questioned by Russian authorities, and there is a video segment of her being questioned by Russian authorities. And I imagine that we're going to get more information as time goes along, as this investigation proceeds. But there are also claims from Russian officials, there are statements from Russian officials that this was an act of terrorism committed by Ukrainian SBU and the Elensky regime. So what that means as far as retaliation from the Russian government, I don't want to speculate. Let's wait and see how the Russian government retaliates to this, if they retaliate at all to this incident of terrorism. So that's what I have at this moment. I mean, I see an update right now. I'm getting updates continuously on this. I see an update from Sputnik News saying that the Kremlin says Kiev regime supports terrorism and may be behind Tatarsky's murder. May be behind Tatarsky's murder. I see another update which says terror attack against Vladlen Tatarsky was plotted by Ukrainian special services. That's another update that I just got. So, you know, we're all of us are getting updates continuously as this unfolds. So I'm just trying to give you the updates that I've received, and some of the information that I've given may change as the investigation goes along, but that's what we got at this moment. Let me read you two tweets, and then we'll move on to the next story, the next big story. Let me read you two tweets. One from Glenn Greenwald, who says, "Gee, I wonder who carried out this terrorist attack on a cafe in St. Petersburg, where a Russian journalist was killed as he held an event on the war in Ukraine, along with 12 others who were wounded. Wonder if it might be the same people who murdered Daria Dugina in her car." So I think you understand where Glenn Greenwald stands with this incident. And we have this from Clint Ehrlich, who said, "Ukraine has conducted 2 assassinations on Russian soil. Both of the targets were journalists. What does this tell us? Number one, their claim to embody Western values like freedom of speech is a farce. And point number 2 is that Elensky is afraid of retaliation from killing actual decision makers." So that was a tweet from Clint Ehrlich. They're definitely targeting, the Elensky regime is definitely targeting journalists. And more specifically, they are targeting journalists who are reporting from Donbass. That's the way it looks, at least from the 2 journalists that they have targeted. That's the common thread, that they were both in Donbass reporting on the conflict. By the way, Tatarsky had a very big following on Telegram, something like 500,000 or 600,000 subscribers on his Telegram channel. So he was an important war correspondent, and he had a big influence, a big following on social media. So let's now move on to another big story, and this comes from the Wagner PMC chief, the head of Wagner PMC, if you want to call him that, Mr. Prigozhin, who yesterday put out a video placing a flag on the administrative building in the center of Bakhmut, and Prigozhin said, and I quote, "Legally, we took Bakhmut." By the way, this flag, from what I understand, had words, honoring the journalist Tatarsky, who was assassinated. And Prigozhin mentioned that that the flag being placed on the administrative building in Bakhmut is in honor of Tatarsky. Now, the key word in Prigozhin's statement is legally. We have taken Bakhmut. From a military strategic standpoint, this is not a big deal. The fact that the flag was placed on the administrative building in the center of Bakhmut, but it does carry a whole lot of symbolic significance. So that was the statement from Prigozhin. Fighting still is taking place in the west of the city of Bakhmut, but legally, the Wagner PMCs, the Russian military, they have control of Bakhmut. Legally, they have placed their flag on the administrative building. And isn't it interesting how the Elensky regime and Ukraine SBU, the intel services of Ukraine, they always come up with these types of drone strikes or terrorist attacks or provocation. It seems that these things always happen whenever the Russian military makes a significant bit of progress in the conflict, or they're about to announce a military or symbolic victory. More so a symbolic victory, it seems. Whenever the Russian military is about to come out with a big symbolic statement as to the fighting in Ukraine, it seems that it's always preceded by some sort of a drone strike or terrorist act or something along those lines, usually with the Zelensky regime or Ukraine secret services behind it. Just an observation that I had there. So the next big news, we have a lot of big stories to cover. The next big news is coming out of OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus announced, to everyone's surprise, they announced an additional reduction of 1.65 million barrels per day until the end of the year. This was indeed an unexpected decision, and it will most likely push the price of oil to $100 per barrel, which is going to infuriate and worry the Biden White House, especially as the Biden White House prepares for the 2024 election. The Wall Street Journal notes that the decision marks another moment in which Saudi Arabia, once a reliable U.S. security partner, is pitting its energy policy against Washington, while the West is opposing Russia over its actions in Ukraine and the United States sought to cut Russia's income. Well, it looks like Russia and Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus, they found a way to raise the price of oil, and they're going to be doing that by cutting production. Russia is actually going to be cutting 500,000 barrels per day. The rest of OPEC, from what I understand, will be cutting production at over 1 million barrels per day. Here's a tweet from Wall Street Silver. Within the past few hours, multiple OPEC nations have announced oil production cuts. Total is over 1 million BPD. Russia has also announced 500,000 BPD cut. Biden has already sold about half of our emergency oil supply reserves. He can't counter this situation. Rising gas prices are coming. That's how I read this. More importantly, it once again signals to the collective West, to the Biden White House, to the world, to China, to BRICS, to Russia, that Saudi Arabia is with BRICS. It is with Russia. It is moving east towards China, towards the multipolar world order, and they agreed with Russia. They worked with Russia to cut oil production and to go against the Biden White House. It's a huge move. It's a huge move, which once again shows that Saudi Arabia is moving away from the United States. And when Saudi Arabia moves away from the United States, that means Marco Rubio. That means that you're going to get a lot more de-dollarization, a lot faster than your 5-year time window, Senator Rubio. So that was big news coming out of Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia did not stop there. MBS announced yesterday that he was inviting Syrian President Assad to the Arab summit that will be taking place on the 19th of May in Riyadh. An official invite from MBS to Syrian President Assad, which means that in this instance, Russian and Chinese diplomacy is winning because they have now reopened a rapprochement of diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Assad, where Assad is even being invited to the Arab summit. Syria will, I imagine, be re-invited back into the Arab League. I believe that Assad was also in talks with the government of Egypt. The government of Syria is also in talks with the government of Egypt. And all that is left is Turkey. That's the final piece to the puzzle as far as Syria is concerned. Turkey and the U.S. troops occupying the northeast of Syria. This is, without a doubt, a huge success for Russian diplomacy and for Chinese diplomacy. It seems like Russia and China, BRICS, the multipolar world, they are fixing the Middle East. They're putting the Middle East back together again from being broken for so many decades by the collective West. So a huge announcement from MBS, and more proof that Saudi Arabia and Assad, MBS and Assad, Saudi Arabia and Syria are talking again, are re-engaging again, are opening up diplomatic channels with each other again. This is a welcome move. Turkey is next, and in Moscow the other day there was actually a delegation from Syria along with Iran and Turkey in Moscow talking rapprochement. I'm telling you, a big announcement is going to be made with regards to Erdogan and Assad. A big announcement of a meeting between Erdogan and Assad, and that's going to be a huge announcement. And I imagine that meeting will take place in Moscow, and that will mean the opening up of relations between Syria and Turkey once again. So that was big news as well. So much big news happened yesterday. I can't keep up, to be quite honest. I really can't keep up. Oh boy, let's see. Let me tell you where I am. I'm at the statue of Tsar Nicholas here in Belgrade. I have to tell everyone that is watching this video, if you come to Belgrade, please come to this statue. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful statue. Nicholas II, Nikolai Ruski Tsar, 1868 to 1918. Let's see the flowers right here. Let me take you to this side of the statue. So hopefully people in Serbia that speak Serbian or in Belgrade, they'll be able to put the translation there of what this says. And I showed you the back of this statue, of this monument. First World War. Mirovoj Vajny. And I think it's in Russian here as well, I think. Here we go. It's in Russian here as well. It's a beautiful statue, beautiful memorial to Tsar Nicholas II. Okay, let's do a couple more stories and we'll get into my clown world. Habeck, Robert Habeck, the German, what is he? The German finance, economic minister, the German energy minister, the German communication minister, he's like the German everything minister outside of foreign minister. That's the job of his Green Party partner, Annalena 360 degrees Baerbock. But Robert Habeck, he traveled to Kiev today. He showed up in Kiev to pay tribute to Elensky. And that's not what makes this story interesting. What makes this story interesting, in my opinion, is that you have Habeck, a high-level official in Germany, a decision maker in the German government in Kiev today. And on Wednesday, you have Elensky traveling to Poland. Not Poland, not Duda going to Elensky in Kiev. Elensky is going to be traveling to Poland. Something is up, everybody. Something is up. And Elensky yesterday in one of his evening statements that he makes, he said, and I quote, "Next week will be especially significant for our movement towards victory." That is what Elensky says. So Habeck today in Kiev. Wednesday, Elensky is in Poland. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What are they cooking up? What is happening? Are we going to see the beginning of the spring offensive? Is that what's being planned out? Are they going to make the final plans for the spring offensive this week? And then next week, are we going to see the offensive begin? Something is coming. Finland, well, something is coming, but in Finland, someone is going. Yeah. In Finland, we have the Elensky curse. The Elensky curse has taken down dancing queen Sanna Marin. Young and sweet, only 17. But don't tell Joe Bidenopoulos that, because he'll come a-sniffing. Dancing queen Sanna Marin, the now former prime minister of Finland. She lost the elections, and we are going to get a new government. From what I gather, this will be a conservative government, and it will be led by Petteri Orpo from the National Coalition Party. So he's going to be, from what I gather, the new prime minister of Finland. This very much reminds me of what happened in Italy with Meloni taking over, a conservative government, but don't expect a change in policy with regards to Russia or Ukraine. While this may be a conservative government, from what I understand, this is a government that will be pro-NATO, pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia. And so it will be very much like the Meloni government. It will support Elensky, and it will be part of the Ukraine, part of the NATO architecture, and part of the Ukraine funding project. So that is the news coming out of Finland, but a WEF, Klaus Schwab favorite daughter, Sanna Marin, has been voted out of office. And so take a look at this meme that someone on the Duran Telegram channel posted, which I thought was a really, really good meme. It has Boris Johnson shaking Elensky's hand with a giant red X. We then see Liz Truss elbow bumping Elensky with a giant red X over Liz Truss. We then see Bulgaria's Petkov shaking Elensky's hand with a giant red X. And we see Sanna Marin, who was in Kiev just a couple of weeks ago, actually, shaking Elensky's hand with a giant red X. And those aren't the only EU officials who have fallen to the Elensky curse. There was Mario Draghi. Let's not forget Mario Draghi. He had to leave his position as Prime Minister of Italy because of the Elensky curse. And who else? Who else has fallen victim to the Elensky curse? I'm drawing a blank right now. Johnson, Truss, Petkov, Draghi. I know there's some other big names that I'm forgetting. The government, I believe it's Slovakia as well. The Estonian government fell to the Elensky curse, but Kaja Kallas got reelected again. So she was a victim of the Elensky curse, and now her government fell, and then she got reelected. She won office again, and so she may actually be the first double victim of the Elensky curse. That would be interesting. Who else? Okay, I'm drawing a blank, but let me know in the comments down below the names that I'm missing of the EU officials who have fallen to the Elensky curse. I love it when they say Assad must go, or Putin must go, or Putin the war criminal, and lock him up, and lock Trump up, and lock Putin up. I love it when they go off about that, and then they're the ones that lose power. But we shouldn't worry about Dancing Queen Sanna Marin. I am sure she will be promoted to some sort of position as president of the World Bank, or vice president of the ECB, or what else? Oh, I know what position they'll give Sanna Marin. I know. They will make her president of Eurovision. That is what they will give Sanna Marin, and that is the perfect job for Dancing Queen. They will make her president of Eurovision, the European Song Contest. That's going to be Sanna Marin's next post. So what else? What else should we talk about? By the way, when oil goes to $100, we are going to see how loyal all the countries are that have agreed to the $60 oil price cap, the oil price ceiling. We're going to see how loyal they are, because they have sworn that they will not pay more than $60 per barrel. Well, that oil is about to go to $100 per barrel. It's going to be some very interesting weeks and months ahead. Japan has already broken off with the G7 and the collective West with the $60 price ceiling, and they've actually been granted an exception to the $60 oil price cap. The WSJ is reporting that Japan breaks with the U.S. allies, buys Russian oil at prices above cap. Citing energy needs, Tokyo won an exception to rules binding G7 nations. I think we're going to see a lot of G7 and collective West nations applying for exceptions to the $60 price cap rule, because there's a big difference between $60 and $100. So, yeah, I forgot to mention that. What else? One more thing I want to mention before getting to the clown world, and that is that Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, he called Lavrov, and he asked Russia to release the Wall Street Journal reporter. I've actually bookmarked Blinken's tweet. Let's see, where is the tweet from Mr. Anthony Blinken? Here we go. I spoke with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today to convey our grave concern over Russia's unacceptable detention of a U.S. citizen journalist. I called for his release and for the release of wrongfully detained U.S. citizen Paul Whelan. So that was the tweet from Anthony Blinken. The rumors are that Lavrov's reply to Blinken's request to release the Wall Street Journal reporter was that Lavrov told Blinken, "We will release the Wall Street Journal reporter once you release Julian Assange." Just a rumor, but allegedly that was Lavrov's reply. And if it was his reply, well, bravo, Sergei Lavrov foreign minister of Russia. I really do hope that was his reply, but it's just a rumor for now. Let's do a clown world. Let's do a clown world. Here's a tweet from Pepe Escobar that I bookmarked. The terror attack in St. Petersburg, which killed military correspondent Vladlen Tatarsky, was set up by the main intelligence directorate of the Ukraine Defense Ministry. The head of the GUR, Kirill Budanov, is directly involved. Shades of MI6. Blowback will be B **H. You know the word. Blowback will be that's from Pepe Escobar. And boy, that photo of Santa Marin, the dancing queen, from when she was at that party, boozing it up. That photo is going to follow her for the rest of her life. I'm scrolling through some of the tweets that I bookmarked, and I'm just kind of reading them back out to you. Let's do our clown world. This is from the New York Times, Twitter, Elon Musk. So the New York Times refuses to pay $7 a month for the blue check mark. They have refused to pay this because the New York Times is standing on principle here. the paper of record, which pushed the BS Iraq WMD narrative and championed the BS war against Iraq. This publication, this newspaper, this paper of record, is taking a principled stance, and they're refusing to pay $7 a month for the blue check mark. So what did Elon Musk say to that? Well, this is what he tweeted. New York Times is being hypocritical here, as they are super aggressive about forcing everyone to pay their subscription. Yes, they are being hypocrites, but that is what the New York Times is best at. Mr. Elon Musk and Musk Twitter, by the way, they removed the blue check mark from the New York Times. They don't deserve a blue check mark. Good on you, Elon Musk. Good on you. And he's 100% right. The New York Times is super aggressive with their subscription service, and they push it on their readers. They put up paywalls and all kinds of stuff like that. And when it comes time for the New York Times to pay just $7 a month for a blue check mark, they refuse. They refuse. And as a matter of fact, from what I understand, most of the collective West media outlets are in collusion with each other. They've all agreed that they're going to refuse to pay the $7 subscription to Twitter so that they can take a strong stand against Elon Musk. Well, he should remove the blue check mark from all of them. From all of them. Anyway, that is the clown world. There's this tweet. Let me leave you with this tweet from, what's the Twitter account here? One sec. Don't freeze up, phone. Don't freeze up now. Okay. Sir Doge of the Coin put up this tweet. The multi-billion-dollar company at New York Times refused to pay $7 for Twitter Blue and have subsequently been awarded a new verification badge. And you can see the screenshot right now. The New York Times has been awarded the clown badge. This is not true. I mean, I think this was photoshopped in. But yeah, the New York Times has received the clown badge. And I'm going to end my clown world right there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rockfin and Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, and Telegram. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code GOODDAY. Get 10% off. And a very quick announcement. We have an Instagram page set up. I'll put the link down below. It's just for the shop. It's not going to be news related at all. It's just for the shop, and we're going to be running a giveaway for that Instagram page as well to get merch from the shop. So I'll have more details this week, but I'll put a link down below to our Instagram page, which once again is not going to be a place for news. It's just going to be a place where we showcase the merchandise on the Duran shop. Anyway, that is the video, everybody, from Belgrade, Serbia. Take care.